Hi, my name is Todd Berzer with Kevolve Product Management. This is Product Management 101 and our lecture on market analysis. If you remember from our last lecture, we looked at the work of product management across 4 different areas. We talked about market intelligence, strategy, new product development, and lifecycle management. So in this set of lectures, we're going to look at market intelligence, and in particular market, customer, and competitive analysis. It's the analysis, this market intelligence, that really forms the basis, the foundation as a product manager to drive strategy, new product development, and lifecycle management. So with this lecture, we're going to look at market analysis, and in particular, we're going to look at the importance of market analysis and segmentation, market segmentation. We're going to talk about identifying your market segments and profiling these segments, so describing them and sizing them. So let's start off with what is market segmentation. So market segmentation is the process of dividing a broad market into groups of customers with very similar needs. So this is needs-based segmentation. Now the advantage of doing this is that when you've got different needs-based segmentations or segments, you can look across those, evaluate those, compare those, and select market segments to enter. And once you've decided to enter a market segment, then you can target specific customers rather than just broad mass marketing. You can design products specifically to meet their needs, and you can focus your marketing and sales efforts directly on them, customizing your messaging and your outbound marketing. So that's market segmentation. Let's continue that. Let's think about needs-based segmentation and how you can do that. So we start by, it's 2 steps here. So we're going to start by identifying the segments. So you're going to cluster your customers into groups with very similar needs. Now the way to do this is to use your market research. There's specific market research designed to do this, but whether you're not, you do that or not, look at all your market research that you have. Look at your customer data, so your sales data, your support data, everything you know about your customers. Potentially you can talk to key opinion leaders and tap in as a product manager into your deep understanding of the market. So to do that, then you look at your customers and you divide them up into groups with very similar needs. And then once you've identified those segments, then you want to go ahead and profile those segments. So you're going to describe them, and then you're going to size those markets. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's talk about identifying the segments, and I'm going to give an example here. And we're going to use a Chinese company, the Chinese company Haier. Now they are the world's biggest or largest home appliance brand. So they sell washers, they sell refrigerators and other home appliances. They are experts at market segmentation and innovation to drive success. So we're going to think about Haier they're worldwide, and they're being very successful worldwide in Africa and the US and elsewhere. But we're going to think about them in the Chinese market. So they're in the Chinese market, they're looking for expansion everywhere, but also in the Chinese market. And they did their segmentation. They did their needs-based segmentation in the Chinese market. And what they came up with was a split between urban and rural. So with the urban people living in cities, living in small apartments, they want small, quiet appliances, as you might imagine. But with the rural customers, what they found, and they found out this through a lot of their support calls and then visits to people out, farmers out in rural China, what they found is people that are living in rural areas in China really want robust appliances. So something very different than the urban apartment dwellers. They really want robust appliances that can stay outside of the house without rusting, kind of resist rodents from coming in, can withstand very cold temperatures, especially in the northern part of China. And for washing machines, they wanted washing machines that can actually clean clothes and clean their vegetables, like potatoes. So as you can see, when they think about this, they did their needs-based segmentation. There's clearly defined needs that are very separate between these 2 groups, between rural and urban users. And so what Haier did, to their credit, is they went ahead and designed products for the urban market, and then are targeting directly to those customers. They designed these small, quiet appliances. But they went a step further and they designed stuff for the rural market as well. So they have appliances now that are made of plastic, that can be outside so they don't rust. They've got rodent proofing, so metal plates on the back or plastic plates on the back that stop rodents from entering. They're very resistant to cold temperatures, and they're marketing a line of washing machines that can wash sweet potatoes as well as your clothes. So credit to the product managers, the people doing product management work at Hire. I think they did good work with needs-based segmentation and taking that to a high level of innovation. But we need to think about your products, your product groups. Unless you're marketing, appliances in China, your groups are probably going to be different than this. So we talked about urban and rural, but I want you to be careful about clustering your customers, again, according to their needs, and focus on market segments, needs-based segments, and not sectors of the population. So rural and urban for Hire makes sense because those are needs-based segments. But let's say you are selling, let's do something similar. You're selling digital cameras into the Chinese market. In this case, I don't think rural and urban would make sense for you at all because there's people in urban areas and rural areas that want very inexpensive cameras, maybe the bottom line, the inexpensive cameras with minimal functionality. And then there's going to be groups in the urban environment and in rural China that want very high quality cameras, very expensive cameras. So in this case, if you're selling digital cameras, it doesn't make sense at all to use urban and rural. And that is almost a sector in this case as opposed to a segment. So anyway, for your product group, for your customer set, you need to think about your specific, the needs of your specific customer group and segment by that. All right, so once you've identified your segments, then you need to describe your segments. So you should talk about the customer characteristics. You should talk about their needs, their motivations, the issues that they need to solve. As it relates to your product group or your service, what's the application? What's their usage behavior? Where are they at? Maybe they're in rural China, or maybe they're in Europe, maybe they're in Canada. What's their location? What's their geography? What's their purchase process? This might be as simple as maybe it's an online purchase, maybe at a site like Amazon, or it could be much more complex if they're a corporation and they go through a whole corporate procurement process for your product or service. Try to give a customer example, a real one. This makes it a lot more interesting. It makes these segments come alive. And note that these segments don't stay static. They change over time. You need to keep up with this. And in particular, every time, note the key trends. How is this segment changing? Where are they moving towards? All right, so if you can profile your market segments, and then you can put them into a chart like this, those characteristics that we just talked about on the left, different segments on the right, maybe add some photos, and you can get a nice comparative view across these segments, and this will be useful later on as you decide which segments to enter, as you kind of weigh the pluses and minuses across each of the segments. That's a qualitative view on the market segments. Now let's take a look at a quantitative view. How to size these segments. So you can do this, we've got a few different examples here on how you can approach this. The graph on the left, so the stacked area chart, is a good way to look at it. So you got segment 1, segment 2, segment 3. From a graph like this, you can quickly see what the overall market is doing, but you can also see the size of each individual segment and how they're changing, if they're growing or shrinking or whatever. And then the chart on the right, it's good to lay out, to kind of estimate on each of these segments, what's the market size, what's the annual growth, what's the competitive intensity, what's your market share and the trend in your market share. And, I will note that when we've worked with clients on this, we often get the response that we don't have this data. We don't know the market size for segment 1. But I think what is important to do is go ahead and take the data that you do have, go ahead and triangulate and make an estimate on that data. So you probably know your sales somewhat into that segment. You would know your competitor, you have some idea on what your competitors are selling into that segment. Even if they're just estimates, put them together, estimate these numbers, note your assumptions. It's much better to go ahead and get some numbers down than to just leave it blank. All right, so that's sizing your market segments. And let's go ahead and review the concepts for this lecture. So we talked about needs-based segmentation, what it is, why to do it. We talked about identifying your segments. We talked about segment description and sizing. So that's market analysis, market segmentation. Next up is customer analysis, and I will talk to you then.